There are 4,218 PS2 games, and I'm beating every one of them. I've got to own the game because I'm playing everything on the original hardware, but I've beefed it up with a RetroTink 5X, some component cables, and more to come soon. Can I do this before I die of old age? I hope so. Deus Ex was originally released for the PC in June of 2000 and the PS2 in March of 2002. There were a host of changes to the PS2 version, like lower resolution textures, higher resolution characters, smaller areas with loading screens, and even the main character having one big health bar instead of one for multiple body parts. Thankfully, they also added mouse and keyboard support, although the game still runs worse than the PC version. Can I beat this cyberpunk immersive sim? I somehow never found myself playing this game, even back in the day when I would have really liked playing this on PC. But now that it's my first time playing and it's on PS2, it's going to be a great time. So hopefully you like the perspective of this game from someone who's never played it and is also playing on a system that isn't normally recommended for your first time playing, but hey, whatever, it's fine, because I got to use a mouse and keyboard, which did make it a lot easier. If you'd like to use a mouse and keyboard, I suggest the Logitech M120 and M100 mouse and keyboard because they work just fine. You need a 3-button mouse. That means only the 2 clicks and the scroll wheel, and the keyboard, most keyboards work, but that keyboard is specifically old enough, doesn't have any bells or whistles that conflict with the PS2, and it works right out of the box. You plug it in and you go. So, I hope that you enjoy this journey. It's going to be pretty similar, except for one thing, I'm not going over the story as in-depth as I usually do, because this game's story is enormous, and there are plenty of channels that have covered these types of things, and something I can't do here without like a month or two of research and putting things together. This channel is all about beating the games quickly, so you'll get my version of the story. Please understand that there will be some wrong things. Just correct me if I'm wrong. Let's go on the journey. At the very beginning of the game, I choose medium difficulty, and I call my guy my dude because I think it might refer to me like that a few times in the game, but it really doesn't ever, since everything is voiced. It just kind of refers to me, and it never says my dude ever. Throughout the game, I pretty much stick with snipers and pistols. While I do use some other weapons, pistols are my favorite because they're just so accurate and easy to get headshots with. I do some computer stuff and some lockpicking, but I don't really go that much in depth into anything specific. See, I want to shoot. I want to shoot everyone in the game. And just as a small anecdote, my friend and I, a long time ago when we first saw this game, talked about how it would be the first game you could go through the entire game without firing a bullet if it's your choice. And so when I beat this on PS2 recently, I mentioned it to him and he said, "Hey, did you go through the whole game without firing a bullet?" And I said, actually, I did the exact opposite. I fired every single bullet I had. From the beginning of the game to the end, every bullet in my inventory was gone. I ended the game with nothing. So it was a good time, and I enjoyed playing it like that. So if you want to play the game stealth or dialogue or hacking, or it's absolutely possible, but I really liked fighting in this game. As the game starts, we learn that our character's name is JC Denton, and we are talking to our brother Paul Denton, who are both part of a federal agency called Unatco, which is apparently, in quotes, neutral. It's a neutral agency that's supposed to be helping with terrorist organization attacks and stuff like that, that the police and the local police and all these people can't deal with, but we're supposed to unilaterally keep the peace all over the world, which it seems a little suspicious. Like, really, you're that neutral? You're neutral. Okay, whatever. Anyway, obviously things change as the game goes on, but that's where we start. And during this time, at the beginning of the game, we learn about the Gray Death, which is a possibly natural disease that's going around, or a one that's lab made, which is very much about, if you can think about any real world events where we had a sickness going around that might have been natural, might have been lab born, and all these people were dying from it, and then you can absolutely draw parallels between this game and the real world. So Unatco is helping to stop these terrorist organizations from stealing the vaccine for the Gray Death and all the things that they're doing, because they believe that we are evil, and obviously because we are Unatco and are supposed to be upholding the law, we think that these terrorist organizations are evil. As JC Denton, we are outfitted with nanotechnology that will help us get the job done. And like I said earlier, because I'm going for guns, I have a lot of nanotechnology for guns, and I do some really cool things with guns. I'm just really good at firing weapons and reloading and finding guns, I think? I'm not sure. There's just so much to this game. I can't quite remember every little detail. As you've been watching at the screen here, I have been messing with the controls, and I do this for 20 minutes because, as I said, I played with a mouse and keyboard. I needed to learn every single control, and for some reason, they don't include what the keys on your keyboard do. I don't know why. I had to look it up online and reference it on a second screen so that I knew what to press and when. So I had a controller plugged in because I needed to navigate some menus early on. I could not figure out how to navigate on mouse and keyboard. It is worth figuring it out because it is extremely useful. It's so much easier to use mouse and keyboard, both for aiming and for inventory management, at least it was for me. The controller is a convenient way to play the game, it really is, and it's cool that you can just plug in and play, but mouse and keyboard was just superior, and this game was much more fun because of it. While we're learning the controls and not even starting the first mission yet, Paul tells us about how he messed up an attempt on an assassination, or at least an attempt on a mission, and he's in a little bit of trouble. And he just kind of walks away like it's nothing, but we had this idea that maybe things are a little bit crazier than they actually are. But we got to start our first mission here, which is to save one of our other Unatco agents, as well as stop a terrorist leader who is in the vicinity here on Liberty Island in New York. So we've got to go around this area until we happen to find our agent, or we don't. That's the cool thing. For this first mission, it is much more a tutorial, just kind of learning what we can do. And all I do in this mission is kill people, loot around, and figure out the controls while trying to find the agent, who I miss, and then the terrorist leader at the very end. It's a very linear set of areas because it's just helping you to learn. It's funneling you in a way that makes it easier to press buttons and make some mistakes, and you don't have to load from very far back, although you do want to save often in this game. So I kill people, I loot them, I break boxes with a crowbar or at least another melee weapon to find ammo and loot. And again, this game is, well, not again, but this game is an immersive sim, so there are hundreds of items everywhere, and you don't actually need to pick any of them up if you don't want, although ammo is probably extremely helpful if you're going for, shooting people like I am, but if you're not, you don't have to pick any of that stuff up. Just pick up what you need, and there's so much of it that you'll find all the things you need and pick those things up exclusively. After I kill a bunch of people and loot, I find this terrorist leader, and I had the option to tell him I'm gonna kill him, or that if he just tells me what happened to the vaccine that he stole, that I will not send him back as a corpse, which it's so cool. There are a lot of options in this game. Every time you talk to someone or make a choice about what you're going to do, it impacts the game, even if it's in small ways. I mean, I'll tell you about one in a minute once we head back to Unatco headquarters. As for now, we talk to this guy so that we can get to our base of operations, which is the Unatco headquarters. It takes me a while to find the headquarters because the only map you have is this satellite image of your above area, which is kind of interesting. I actually am able to navigate my way back, and while I'm doing that, I search everywhere for everything, and I play around a bunch. Like, I use my nanotechnology to make my muscles stronger to pick up these couches. I try stacking them on this guy's head to reach a vent up above him. I'm not sure how you actually reach the vent, but this seemed like a really fun way to do it, except I had too many issues jumping on the couch and keeping it on his head. It just never worked out, but it was still fun to mess around. Like I said, you can pick up most things in the environment, especially if you activate that nanotechnology to pick up heavier things, and move them around. I make it all the way down to the headquarters where I can talk to all the employees and my friends, as well as my boss, and during this I find a case that you can get into. I don't have the lockpicking skills, but I do have a grenade that blows up. It's called a lamb, and it's very, very helpful, but I decide it's time to see if I can blow this up and see what happens. It does make some people upset, but I'm able to get into the cupboard and get some pretty cool things. And this guy doesn't immediately come and arrest me. I guess I'm just immune to that. Eventually I meet up with my boss, and he says, instead of going after the vaccine that was stolen, I'm gonna have you go with another one of your partners to do something else for me. Instead, go first, talk to everyone around here and get some supplies and equipment, and make sure you get checked up in the medical bay and make sure you're locked and loaded and talk to your coworkers and see what they have to say. I find my coworkers in another room and I start talking to them, and Anna Navarra is going to be my partner for this next mission. And Gunther over here is the one I was supposed to rescue in that last mission, and I completely forgot, and he constantly brings it up and says things offhandedly, like passive aggressive to me. I feel bad that I missed him, but you know what? He ends up being a shit in the end anyway. Check out this lovely mirror that actually captures a lot of my character animations, except for me holding on to specific things. He still moves around, it's still a cool mirror. Just as an example of what can happen in this game, out of curiosity, I'm checking everywhere to see what I can find. I walk in on this woman in the bathroom who is absolutely upset with me for coming into the bathroom, saying it's unprofessional, and her name is Shannon. And this is not the end of things. For the rest of the game, not only does she give me the cold shoulder for walking in on her in the bathroom, but she reports me. And later when I'm talking to my boss, he says, hey, you've got to watch it. Don't be walking into the bathroom and looking at women in the bathroom. And it's crazy. For the rest of the game, I'm told that I'm bad for doing this. I'm like, hey, I was curious. It's a game. I really go crazy exploring this place and getting all the equipment that I can get around here, getting healed up, but I also read tons and tons of computer files that explain lots of different things to me that are helpful, but there is so much to look at. There is no way without some time and writing it down so that I remember. I'm going to remember all of this. Some of it's helpful in the moment, but some of it's just in one ear, out the other. There's too many things. Our boss then talks to both me and Paul and says that Paul needs to really get in there and go hard when he's getting the vaccine from those terrorists, because the mayor and his daughters will want the pills they are deserved because his daughters have the Gray Death or they're afraid of having it. So, the elite need their pills, so go get them. And no mention of giving it to anyone else, just the mayor and his 3 daughters, which I assume that this is how it is, they're gonna be crap about it. But because I did a good job in my last mission, I actually get a bonus, which is really cool. And then he talks to me about my next assignment. Okay, so Anna and I are trying to look around this place for other shipments of stolen Ambrosia, the vaccine for the Gray Death. So we're given a picture here so we know what it looks like, and now I'm off, and I can absolutely do whatever I want at this point getting into this place. Anna mentions that there should be a second entrance somewhere that we can sneak into, but she doesn't know where it would be. And then I ask if it's possible we just run in through the front, because of course JC asked that. So she says, yeah, of course, but maybe a second entrance, but you should look. So I take my time searching the entire area. I start talking to everyone, which is really just a bunch of bums, at least that's what they're labeled, and this kid, who I guess technically is also a bum, and he does help us a little bit by giving him some food. He'll give us some information, which is cool, which means that talking to anyone and giving them money or things, or just talking to them in a certain way, you can get information you wouldn't normally have gotten. Some people want money for what they have, and some people just give it to you because they have no clue that they have something of value, so they just tell you and you learn it before you need to pay anyone else. There's just so much to do. I find myself in the vents to a subway sewer, and in this room there are tons of dudes everywhere, and we've got to watch out for cameras, but here we can see one of these shipments of Ambrosia, so I've got to get over there somehow. I take out dudes and cameras everywhere, trying to get a picture of this shipment, and let me just say, using the pistol and using the aiming mouse and keyboard ability, which is holding Alt, is super, extremely useful. Something that happens in a game called Perfect Dark, or GoldenEye 64, if you can remember those games. If you hold the Z button down when you're targeting, instead of your aim zooming in or anything like that, the screen sits still and you move the reticle itself around the screen. This is the same thing you can do in this game by holding Alt on the keyboard. You can then move the reticle on the screen without the screen moving, which actually is way more helpful than you'd imagine, because obviously you're jerking your aim around and everything in your vision gets distorted as you're trying to aim, but if you hold Alt down, it is all static and you can move it to wherever you want. And a lot of times you can sneak up on people or get them to go around a corner in a certain way, so all you have to do is line up your shot. This makes it much easier to be accurate in this game, on top of the fact that I hear the PS2 version is slightly more lenient with accuracy when shooting at people, but there are many times where I shoot 1 or 2 bullets to kill several people all once in the head, and that's it. So it is possible to be accurate in this game using Alt, using pistols, using the static stops, and the fact that it's the PS2 version. We get back to Anna with the picture of the Ambrosia, and she gives us shit for killing people, and also we argue about being human and the fact that she's more of a cyborg and I'm just more of a human with nanotechnology. I don't know. There's a lot of these philosophical discussions between characters all over the game. Our next objective is to save these hostages taken by the terrorists who actually stole the Ambrosia. So I go ahead and start tossing some nades down. These are EMP grenades, and they stop electronics from working, like targeting systems for turrets and cameras. However, it's kind of hard from these vents above the subway, so I do end up jumping down to fight them. However, it is not a good idea, as the second I land, I'm just destroyed immediately by a flamethrower and people shooting at me from everywhere. Obviously, I gotta go at this with a little more tact, and that's exactly what I do. I use a sniper rifle this time so that I don't have to get so close, because as good as the pistol is, from that far away, it is helpful to scope in on people. It makes it a lot easier to get those headshots, and you do have very limited ammo in places like this, so getting headshots for a one-hit kill is extremely useful for the whole entire game. And at first I do this for a while really well, and as things go on it does get a little harder, but it is the best way to handle shooting people, is to always go for the head with every shot. One of the hostages that I rescue tells me that they went up north in a train taking a special payload, which is probably more of that Ambrosia stuff that we saw earlier. And he says they went to Hell's Kitchen, so we get on the train and go there. When I arrive, my brother tells me that the NSF, which is the terrorist organization, so I'll start calling them the NSF, are around this area and they're having firefights with us, so I can help if I can get myself over there, because I know that I still have to find this Ambrosia, but I'm allowed to just do whatever I want. Now that I'm in this city, which is a much bigger, a little bit more open-ended, I can search around and find things to do on my own and find my way to get into places, because now it's starting to be like, now you can talk to people to get into places, find keys, find back ways to get in, find computer systems to get in, shoot my way in. Whatever I want to do, I can do it. So now is the time to start experimenting. He also reminds me that he does have an apartment here, and that if we want to get into a secret room in his apartment, we can, and it will have a bunch of equipment for us to use. And then these guys here give me some really cool explosives. It's suggested that I start in the bar here, because this is where I talk to people to maybe figure out some stuff around the area so that I can start locating what I need. Now, this game does not have quest markers, it just tells you where to go and you must find it. It's very similar to how Morrowind works, where it gives you a detailed description of what you need to do and where you need to go, but no markers showing you where to go, and this is the kind of thing I like. I've gotten so used to the waypoint markers and telling you where to go and little arrows that it's a little weird coming back to these types of games, but ever since I started this challenge, it's been really great to do these again. So now I've got to search around and figure it out for myself. I buy this guy named Jock a beer, and he tells me about a man named Smuggler who knows a lot about a lot of stuff, but we've got to be careful because he's probably trapped himself around this area with booby traps so no one can get to him. So I got to be careful, but he will have more information for me. Jock actually ends up being my pilot later in the game for quite some time, so it's kind of cool that we get to see him here and meet him and hear some stuff about him. And then he talks to me about some other conspiracy type theories that this game really goes hard into sometimes, and it's kind of cool, but I won't talk about those very much here. I walk into the back alley and there's this guy who's named Pimp talking to this woman, and he actually ends up killing her if we do nothing. Now, I wanted to do nothing to see what would happen because it seemed like the conversation was going somewhere, and if you stand there long enough, she does die. My immediate instinct was to kill him, but I thought this game has a lot to it. Maybe we see what happens when they finish their conversation. It's really cool, I can't believe it. These two different outcomes are great, and you can then get involved or not get involved. In fact, I think you can also convince him to leave as well, but I don't, I just kill him. I do head into my brother's apartment where I find his secret vault, and I get a bunch of cool equipment. Now, throughout the game here, you'll get so many different things to use, and the only way to use some of these things is to up your skills in the skill tab, something I don't do for another 6 or 7 hours. I completely forgot about activating the skills section and getting better things. I just got lucky with how good the pistol is and how close I'd get to people, and I didn't really need too many skills to let me through some parts of the game here, so please remember your skills. After heading into the hotel, we do find out that there's someone holding some people hostage here, so I break out of my brother's apartment and save them. And they actually give me a couple helpful tips on how to get underground by using the password righteous. I finally find myself past all the booby traps smuggler set up, which really isn't that many, and I get to him to talk to him, and he says, hey, I have a friend who is caught in the sewers in some kind of lab. During this whole time, this guy is talking to Denton about the fact that the American government is corrupt, and there's a lot of things corrupt, which JC has been told for years of his life that everything's good, and he says, oh, you should have a better regard for the United States government. And Smuggler obviously doesn't because he thinks that they're corrupt. And a lot of these things are right, but it's just very interesting how they give it to Denton, and Denton has to slowly be convinced that the organization he is initially working for here is bad and doing bad things. So they're all slowly getting into his head. I find myself spending around an hour navigating through different sewers, picking up new equipment, and trying to get past these laser tripwire things, which does make it kind of difficult. I think these activate a gun at the end of the hallway. Most of them activate something that will hurt you. It's not just an alarm. There are a few places where you can activate alarms to get people to come get you, but a lot of times in these areas, they just have a big old gun waiting for you if you trip them. Just as an example of the amount of goals you have in each level, this is level 3, and we already have several secondary goals that we've been working on, and we have some primary goals. And so this whole time we've been trying to figure out ways to get into, do these goals, with the secondary goals actually helping us get further into the primary goals, which is really cool. I end up finding Smuggler's friend down in these labs, and he tells us about the over-equipped guys who have been keeping him prisoner here. And Denton is starting to kind of lose faith in what's going on because some of this stuff is not making sense to his worldview where the government is good. I eventually find myself saving several homeless people in the sewers from some of the NSF members, who this guy then rats out on. He tells me about the secret base with the generator in it and even tells me how to get into the secret base. I decide to give up my pursuit of nanotechnologies and saving people from the government and decide to try out for some basketball. It's time to go across some roofs, and I use the sniper rifle to take out quite a few number of dudes up here. I really like the combat, even though it's a little slower and not nearly as fast-paced as I usually play games, but it was a lot of fun still because it was just satisfying. You get a lot of weapons, you get a lot of ways to fight people. Enemies aren't a joke in this game. You can die very quickly, and it all depends on what kind of armor they're wearing, the bullets you want to shoot at them, or the weapons you want to use against them. Although, I'll tell you what, the shotguns suck. I find myself fighting through an enormous complex of dudes who seem to respawn sometimes. And I have to take care of them very quickly because the generator is right here. I can shoot some barrels to blow up this portion, and I also go upstairs and look through the computers because I just like to snoop. After I destroy that thing, Gunther comes here to talk to me and says that they should have sent Anna Navarra, my other partner, instead of my brother because my brother is timid. I mean, you know, he's got something going on, apparently. He's definitely got something going on. He seems a little apprehensive about things and secretive. But hey, you know what? I did a good job, and now my boss is going to tell me. Before I'm able to head into HQ to talk to my boss, this bodyguard's like, hey, there's some bigwig downstairs and you gotta leave Mr. Simons to do the interrogations. Don't you dare say anything to him. And I'm like, I'm gonna talk to that motherfucker as much as I can. While we go speak to Anna Navarra before we talk to this bigwig who's come over here to talk to us, we actually hear him talking with our boss saying that he should get rid of my brother because he has me, a better agent. I guess my brother being too timid is actually a problem, so they're in there talking about him right now. Oh my god, this guy's outfitted with nanotechnology too, and he thinks he's so freaking cool, so I'm gonna follow him. He actually takes me down. Well, he doesn't want to take me down. He wants to do it by himself. But I follow him into the cell where he's trying to interrogate this prisoner. And he keeps telling me to stop talking to him and trying to interfere. But I don't care. I keep talking to this dude. This dude actually talks to me because I'm not as crappy as the other dude. And so he tells me a bunch of stuff like, you know, the conspiracy theory stuff and the fact that the government's terrible, which, I mean, obviously this guy doesn't want us to know the government's terrible. Apparently this guy's had it up to here with these guys, so he just murders them. And then he asks me not to say a word about what I saw. I finally report to my boss, who tells me, hey, you get some bonus because you did a good job, you got a lot of things done, but now we need you to track that shipment that they took out of Hell's Kitchen. And the problem is that my brother screwed up royally. That's why they're trying to fire him. That's why that a government official was in here talking to him, because my brother is nowhere to be found and did not secure the shipment. So that's getting a little suspicious. So we've got to find an airfield going through the subways again, which I love subways. And then we must get to the airfield and stop the shipment. I screw around the sewers for a little bit and I kill this drug dealer here and I kill some more NSF dudes until I finally find someone to help me find this airfield. I find these guys setting up booby traps for me, but a lot of these guys start to just give up mid-fight or before I even fight them. These guys actually aren't part of the NSF in a way that they want to fight. They're just kind of thinking the government's crap. So a lot of people are like, nah, I'll get out of your way. We got more sewers, we got some boxes I'm trying to move with my super muscles, and we got some laser tripwires. And there's a couple ways to do this little thing, so whatever way you want to do, if you have the manpower to pick up the big crate, you can stack them. If you do what I do here, you can sneak through and try and get to the other side. Again, you have a lot of options. So I have to deal with these things, so I throw lambs at them to destroy them because I don't really have a good way of fighting these robots without something explosive, so I have to do this because they are super strong. I fight quite a few more dudes and discover a lot of little items hidden everywhere in the level until I finally make it to the airfield, where I get a transmission to tell me all about what I need to do here. They give me a map and they tell me how to kill this dude, and now I gotta try and figure out this big labyrinth of an airfield. I find myself swimming underwater, and when you run out of breath, you slowly lose health, about 10 per tick. Now, you could still use this to your advantage because, it's just another resource, so just, say screw it. If you have enough food and medical kits on you, you can heal your health back. You can even use an ability to regenerate your health. You might as well, because there's so many different items everywhere, it's worth checking and using every resource you have, so just kind of take some damage. I finally make it to the plane where that guy is supposed to be, I'm supposed to kill, and I see in the distance, my brother? And he tells me through a transmission, everything's cool, man, I actually work for the NSF, and you're gonna come over here and talk to me, and I have the guy you're supposed to kill on the ship here, I gotta talk to you about some stuff, and he tries to explain to us what is going on. Paul explains that the virus, the Great Death, was man-made, and that Unatco is holding on to the only vaccines and distributing them as they see fit, so only to the rich, and obviously this is a problem, so Paul says that there's a guy in Hong Kong who can actually synthesize the antidote for just everyone, and we're going to distribute it to everyone so they don't die from the Great Death, which apparently was made to just thin out all of the poor people, I guess, I don't know. He says to go onto the ship and talk to Lebedev, the guy we were supposed to kill, and he can actually convince us because JC is still not having it. And when we get on here, instead of being able to actually figure much out before we finish talking, Anna Navarra just kind of shows up out of nowhere. She comes up and says, finish the job right now. And my guy's like, no, he's protected under our policy, he's an unarmed prisoner. And she's like, nope, if you can't do it, I'm gonna do it. Go back to her boss, who's probably gonna chew you out. And at that moment, I realize, I think she's just gonna kill him. And I'm like, oh dude, I'm totally in on this conspiracy stuff. Like, sure, let's do it. So I kill her. Yes, that's right, I kill my coworker. And after she dies, she explodes into viscera all over me and almost actually ends my life here, and I had to restart, but I made it. Once we finally have a chance to talk to Lebedev, he tells us that our parents were murdered, me and Paul's parents were murdered on purpose, and then we were put nanotechnology in our bodies to do this very specific thing, because apparently we're just the right people. I'm not exactly sure yet, but he's like, you're the proof that your organization Unatco is actually bad. In fact, they're not even called Unatco, they're called Majestic 12, which is another one of those underground hidden organizations. We let our brother go because the actions we took kind of made it so that JC was convinced at least enough to hear people out. And Gunther comes up and we tell him, oh, I don't know, I heard shooting on the plane and then my brother was gone. I didn't get a chance to see anyone. So Gunther's like, I'm gonna go check it out, you go back to base. And no one knows quite yet that Anna's dead or who actually killed her. Shannon is still talking about me meeting her in the bathroom. I kid you not. She is so pissed about it. I didn't know. It's a video game. I thought I was supposed to go in the bathroom. Alex here is the guy who's been linking us with transmissions the entirety of the game so far. He will be doing this for us more through the game, but he is actually kind of our friend, and he sees everything we see. He has this like recording device, almost like a black box in a plane, and it records everything that goes on, so he sees what happens. He told us that while he wasn't sure about us killing Anna, he understands everything that's going on. He's heard everything that happened, so he knows, and he actually deleted it for us. What a nice guy. That government official comes back to my job to talk to me. Obviously, this is a big deal. One of our best agents defecting, and he says, don't worry, it won't cast a shadow over your work. And it's like, you guys are absolutely suspicious. Don't even try to pretend like you're not suspicious of me. And then he's like, we're gonna take you back to your brother's place so you can get any evidence that you can get from him. And I'm like, you're just having me go there to see if I'm gonna defect. I find my boss and I start lying about what happened, and he already knows right away. He's like, bullshit. Because I tell him that Lebedev killed Anna Navarra himself, and it was a surprise attack, and he finds it hard to believe, and he's like, you're digging your own grave if you cover up for your brother. Now the big problem is that all of the agents with nanotechnology have kill switches, and it takes 24 hours to actually kill you, and you have that time to try and figure something out, I suppose, but right now all we know is that there's a kill switch. We didn't even know beforehand. So JC's like, I proved myself right. Can I really, kill him by, so he's a little worried. Sadly, this means that our next mission is to try to track Paul down by taking out his contact in Hong Kong, which is named Tracer Tong. So we've got to go there, and that's what we're gonna be doing next. Before heading out to Hong Kong, we stop in Hell's Kitchen to go to my brother's apartment, and I do take a side quest to help this woman who we actually saved from a pimp last time. It was the woman who I was like saving and let the conversation go to see what happened. I actually saved her from another dude, and her dad, who owns the hotel here, she just runs away. It's just a crazy little side mission. Well, look who it is. Paul's sitting in his apartment waiting for us, and apparently that kill switch isn't making him feel very good. He says it's classified what's gonna happen to him, although it's a kill switch, so I assume he's gonna die. Anyway, JC doesn't like this, and he says that with some proof, he really will believe Paul and defect to NSF. So he says, down in the bunker in the NSF headquarters here, you can find a data cube that will tell you everything, including pictures, but also when you go over there, it'd be great if you could send a distress signal through the NSF antenna at the top of the building. The problem is that it's going to be possibly found by Unatco, and if it does, we're going to be in trouble, so we've got to like encrypt it and make sure no one sees it. While I'm here at the headquarters, I find myself a really cool little safe with some stuff in it and a bunch of explosive barrels around it, and I decide, hey, I'm gonna get into this thing no matter what. So I have this bright idea to grab this case of TNT, and I'm like, maybe I can set it up in a way that will help me, and nope, it killed me. This time I sneak around the corner and shoot an explosive barrel. Well, I thought it was an explosive barrel, but it's got this poison gas in it. And yes, it does blow up a little bit, but not enough to actually help me. Instead, it just fills the chambers around this area with the gas, and I have to back up and wait. And wait. It was a stupid idea. I head back to see my brother a little early. Instead of sending the encrypted message, I just talk to him about whether or not I'm gonna defect, and I say, no, I'm still not gonna. I still don't have proof enough. And it's like, JC, man, your brother, the most advanced agent of Unatco, has defected due to all this proof, and you're still not convinced? Okay, fine, man. So now I have to go back and send that message. Once I make my way back to the top of the headquarters, I find a little computer system I have to hack to turn the antennas in the correct direction. Apparently they need to all be facing in the same way, and then I send out the message. Oops, apparently the message wasn't encrypted enough, and they found out about me. That government official I'd been talking about earlier, who I was like shadowing inside of the prison thing, and he killed people. Yeah, he found out, and he said, I just ordered all the troops to kill you because you're not worth my time. You're a very expensive mistake. And so I spend my time killing all the dudes who were around this place who were friendly to me just a minute ago, but now they're out to get me. I go back to talk to my brother, and I'm like, hey man, so that government official contacted me the second I sent that message. Seems pretty bad. Paul's like, yeah, they're part of Majestic 12. They've got their own thing going on. I have no clue about it. And then we are attacked by practically everyone, including bodyguards or men in black. They don't have any little lasers to make you forget, but I do have to fight these guys, and there are quite a few of them out in the hallway. Now, at this part in the game, you can actually have Paul die here, and that's the last you hear of him. Of course, he's dead. Or you can help him get out of here. And if you, instead of running out the back window like Paul tells you to, if you fight through, you can keep him alive for further on in the game. This is just a good example of the kind of chaotic parts of combat, because at first, being an immersive sim, it doesn't feel like you're gonna see a lot of combat, but man, you see a lot of combat, and it's a lot of fun. I don't know, I just had a good time. I know it's a little bit slower paced, but you have a lot of options. And you just, I don't know, it's just a lot of fun to try your best to like kill them quickly because they can kill you quickly, conserve enough ammo, use the right weapons and ammo that you have in your guns to pierce armor and whatever you need to use. It's just a good time. As long as Paul gets out of there safely, you'll actually get a message from him letting you know he did make it out. You actually get caught, and I believe he does too, but you both get caught and sent back to Unatco and put in to the security prison, and now you have to break your way out. We also see during our escape some scientists who talk about the fact that we have my and my brother's cells in the labs. Apparently, we are a lot more than we are led to believe. We thought we were just dudes with some nanotechnology, but no, we were made specifically for this. I mean, earlier we found that out, but it's like kind of hard to understand. They like created us and put us in this position because they were their best bet, I guess. I'm not sure. But there's a lot of people here who are actually friendly to us if we talk to them. And we can actually talk to some of the characters we've met before and see if they'll defect along with us, or at least offer them the chance to be. So we'll see some of those characters. I think you have to talk to them though, but you'll see some of those characters later on. All right, so it seems Paul's okay, and he tells us he has some business to take care of in Manhattan, and he'll see me in Hong Kong, where I'm actually not going to kill Tracer Tong. I'm going to go talk to him. During this whole escape mission, I keep getting contacted by Daedalus, some kind of AI who is explaining to us what to do to leave and exactly what's going to happen sometimes. Like it has this foreknowledge that you wouldn't expect someone to have. It turns out to be an AI. I mean, it's very soon you'll learn all about these AI guys, but I mean, even the voice sounds kind of like AI, and it's telling us what to do. So we follow along with what it says. It even tells us the security code to exit the whole building and says one of you must survive. So it needs either Paul or I, and both of us make it. I walk into my boss's office where they're trying to reassign him because they're like, oh, this was all a mistake. And then this guy, Walter Simons, who's the government official, says, never mind, you're not going to have to be reassigned. Your pupil is here to teach you a lesson. And so he says that I am actually worth $50 billion, all of me, all that's gone on. So I'm raging at this point. I'm mad at everything that's happening. So I kill my boss and we move on. Oh my God, I run into Shannon again. And while she does get a little upset with me, she also thinks that I'm here to bust her for the things she stole around the office. And I'm like, I'm really the last person here who's gonna bust you for anything because I've now defected. Just keep yourself safe. She actually offers to give us some stuff that will help fight against robots, which is really helpful, and I actually take it from her, but this whole series of events is crazy. Once I escape, Jock, my helicopter pilot, just is like, sure, I'll go to Hong Kong with you. He's down for anything, man. Oddly enough, we have to stop, or we get stopped, and we're pulled into this base here, and so we can't leave because they've locked us in. I have to go through this base just to open up the doors for the chopper to get out. It's kind of like a weird little section. You get some cool items and stuff, and you get to go in some vents, but eventually we get out of here. I don't know, it takes like 15-20 minutes. We finally arrive in Hong Kong, an extremely large map that we'll be in for quite some time. And I get lost here several times looking around, trying to figure out all the things that you can do, because this game really does have a staggering amount of options for what you can do. I think at some point I even find myself in someone's apartment building, scaling out of the window and jumping from ledge to ledge, finding random sniper ammo and guns along these like billboards. It's crazy the amount of stuff you can do and the amount of stuff I probably missed. So in your playthrough, if you take the time, you can really find all this really cool stuff. Anyway, as we get here, Daedalus says, hey, you really need to find Tracer Tong because he's the one who's gonna help you, and please don't die. And it just really does not want us to die. As I try to locate Tracer Tong, I find out that there are two warring factions, the Luminous Path and the Red Arrow, and they're fighting over a sword, this special laser sword, maybe a space laser sword? Anyway, they're fighting over it and no one's happy about it, so there's this thing going on in the background that we'll eventually end up dealing with very soon. But first, we've got to find Tracer. So as I'm going around talking to people about all these different things, I hear Maggie Chow's name mentioned a couple times until I finally find her in her house here in Hong Kong. And she says that she knows both me and my brother, and she says my brother intimately, which is kind of gross. She's like, I made him come over on her side, which means, you know, they're banging or something. Anyway, she says that the Red Arrow, who she's a part of, knows where Tracer Tong is, and that Red Arrow and the Luminous Path, like I said before, are having a war because of this nanoblade technology they made. Apparently, they're all about skill. If your skill in making blades is good, you're the better Triad member or something. So they made this cool nanotech blade and everyone's pissed. But apparently, Unatco sent Paul here to kill the leader of the Red Arrow and Maggie Chow. Obviously, she has a lot going in all these Triad wars, but he was supposed to come here and kill them, and that's when she convinced him to not do that. And apparently that they want the nanoblade technology for one reason or another. We still don't know yet. But they're also friends with Luminous Path, which is kind of weird. I don't know why they're friends with Luminous Path, but apparently they are. And so Maggie says, you can go down to the police station. There's a bunch of evidence that the police for some reason are just holding on to and not using. You can help figure everything out. And so she gives us the code to get into the police department, but there's a little more going on than we figure out here at least. As I'm messing around her house, I find myself inside the walls, and I find that she actually has the sword herself, hidden from everybody, and it's called the Dragon Tooth. Tracer Tong contacts us and says, oh, you should get it, man, you gotta get the sword. Maggie's been screwing everyone, so everyone's got their own little angle to everything, and that's why this game has been very interesting so far. I mean, honestly, we're on stream like 5 of 10, we've still got a bunch to go. Man, there's just a lot of cool stuff in this game. Look at this list of goals for this level. I mean, seriously, I've already gone through a bit of these things, but I still have a lot to do. This game just has so much to do. We find this guy who is a member of the Luminous Path, a high-ranking member, in fact, and he sees that we have the sword, and he's like, oh my god, she had the sword in her apartment? Okay, take it in, show the leader, and we'll figure out what's going on. We find the Red Arrow leader and show him that we have the sword, and we're like, hey, Maggie's kind of a traitor to both sides of the Luminous Path and the Red Arrow. She's actually working for Unatco, which is now Majestic 12. She's just here to like help them get control of Hong Kong, because apparently it's important for them to have control of Hong Kong, so they're weakening the Triad members by doing all this stuff. And now that we have proof that they're doing it, they can stop. And this guy's like, yeah, let's stop and we'll talk about what's going on, so no more hostilities. But before we can go anywhere, apparently a bunch of robot dudes come in to try and stop us, and they're definitely from Unatco / Majestic 12. These guys are tough. They are in just armored up, and you can find the bullets to fight them with and deal more damage to them. Although at this point, I hadn't fought any of them yet, so I didn't think about keeping that ammo, and now that I know, I just have to find a way to kill them otherwise, which, you know, I don't know about the flamethrower here, but these guys can kill you very quickly. We come back and tell the Luminous Path all the good news, and he says, wow, thank you, that's actually pretty cool of you. And I'm like, yeah, you know what it is, it's really cool of me. And then he's like, hey, by the way, Tracer Tong is inside down in the labs, go find him. I'm like, oh, thank God. See, the reason I'm so excited to see him is because he is literally going to take off our kill switch so we don't die. This is the whole reason we were trying to find him. We need to just not die. So first things first, after he saves our life, he's like, hey, you gotta help me with something. Apparently the sword is not enough proof, and you know, like the fact that it just exists and there's only one of them. The Triads are gonna start fighting again soon, even with Maggie Chow gone, the person who is like making them all fight. And so Tracer's like, hey, you can go get the ROM encoding and make the technology available to both sides so that the war really will be over. And if you leak it to the other side, to both sides, everything should be fine. So he says, go to a place called VersaLife, which is apparently some kind of company running these special operations as well. You know, everyone's running a special operation somewhere. So anyway, we have to go there to steal this thing. After I get there, there's a couple different ways I can get down, and I find this disgruntled employee who's like, I don't give a crap about nothing, and he actually gives me the codes to get to where I need to go, and I don't have to pay any corrupt dude anything. Okay, now that we're down in this lab, we see a huge-ass metaphor, obviously, on this very reflective surface in this hallway, a big stone hand over a globe, and obviously, whatever way you look at it, one way you look at it, they have their hand over the top of the world, like controlling it, and then the other one, they have their hand underneath the world, supporting it. Which one do you think they're doing? I walk into this room and listen to this conversation between different department heads in the facility down here where I'm stealing stuff, and they're just nerding out over here, like saying some of the most biggest technobabble stuff I've ever heard. It's crazy. I really like the dialogue and just the atmosphere. When you walk in here, you don't talk to them, you just listen to their conversation. I know that they want me to go through some of the hallways, but I have an ability to activate where I can fall and take very little damage. And so I set it up so I just take little damage and jump down, after saving of course, to make sure I do it, and jump down and ride up this little elevator to get the ROM encryption rather than going through the hallways here. I don't know how much I've skipped, but now that I have this ability so high, I can land from a long distance up and not die, and I can even jump a high distance up, meaning that I can get to places I'm not actually supposed to get to a little earlier, or places I'm not even supposed to get to at all. Once I bring it back to these guys, they're actually both pretty happy. I think they were probably tired and exhausted from all the war stuff. So I'm glad that they were finally able to figure out their differences, and now that they both have really cool space swords, they can just get over themselves. I get back to talk to Tong, and he's like, hey, great job, we can actually like manufacture those swords and everyone's all cool and stuff, but you need to break back in to the same place, VersaLife, you just broke into, and retrieve something else, because they have schematics for the Ambrosia vaccine. And I'm like, oh my god, they probably know I'm coming, what am I supposed to do? And he's like, don't worry, there's a back way in, I've got a code for you. It's JC underwater, and I'm doing some fighting of these like little creature things that they've been doing in the lab, growing in the lab, and as you can see, I'm out of breath, although I do have an ability to regenerate health, so this is great. The higher the ability to regenerate your health is, the more you can regenerate it underwater after your breath runs out and keep yourself alive. As you can see, it does deplete my energy, as that's what makes the ability work, but I mean, you know, one for the other, it's all resources you can use, so I spend time swimming around regenerating over and over and over just to see what I can find under here. And there are some helpful items and even things that will help me progress later on in the level, so it's worth it sometimes to go check this stuff out. Oh man, so we've got a robot and a robot guy, and look at them, they look really menacing, don't they? But you know what, I have a rocket launcher, so I think I'll be okay. Just gotta hack this console, equip the rocket launcher, and I should be great. These guys are not gonna stand a chance. Everything's gonna go alright, well, maybe not. There are a lot of guys going back down through VersaLife here, and there are honestly a lot of pickups and cool things to get, different ways to go around these guys. Like those last guys, the robot that I died to by shooting my own rocket launcher into myself, there's actually a way to bypass both of those guys entirely, and I find it after I kill them the second time I reload. That's okay. One thing that you do get to find though are nanotechnology things down here that will help give your character more abilities. So you can augment the abilities that you buy and then make them stronger by picking up these skill augments, as well as just skill points in general, but this place seems to have a large amount of those skill augmentations, giving me more abilities and stronger abilities. I mean, the ability that I like the most in this game is the speed enhancement one, which allows you to run faster, jump higher, and land from a higher distance up. Sounds like I'm about to wear the shoes from Sandlot, but seriously, you run faster and jump higher. Every kid's dream. Yeah, see these bad boys? You can actually break into these little capsules and get those out of there as long as you take the time. And those are gonna be really helpful. I mean, especially for someone running through the game as fast as he can. I really took my time in this game, much more so than I usually do. There is what seems to be some kind of alien thing down here. In the laboratory in these little sections here, where if I go into without a hazmat suit on or an ability to help filter out all the toxins, it will kill me. But for some reason this alien is like, nah dude, I'm cool. He's got some kind of resistance to it all. This VersaLife section is very, very long, just going all the way back into this facility. There's a lot to do, a lot of guys to fight, and a lot of items to get. It's a really good time. Once I get the schematics, we find out that VersaLife has a universal constructor, which is what was creating Grey Death and the vaccine, and no one's allowed to do either of those things, you know? The Grey Death was actually supposed to be some kind of nanotechnology, or something like that, I'm not sure, but the vaccine that they were making was super exclusive, and now that we have this universal constructor schematics, we actually have a chance to maybe make it ourselves, or at the very least we stop VersaLife from manufacturing stuff on their own. We talked to Tracer Tong and he says something about the Illuminati, which immediately makes me groan a little bit. I mean, back in this time that made sense, but nowadays we haven't heard about it very much because it was such a silly thing, you know, the Illuminati. There are even like shows and movies about the Illuminati, and it was just a great old time to talk about them, and conspiracy theories all over the place, but they're real in this game. We go back to Jock, and Jock agrees to take us to New York to further our quest and finding more about, I guess, the Ambrosia? So we talk to this guy in the Hell's Kitchen area yet again. We're here for the third time, although we're not going to stay in this area too long. Philbin tells us that Dowd, the guy that we were trying to find, because he knows where a freighter is that was originally used to transport the virus when it was man-made over here. We need to figure out where they're unloading, because they can also make the virus and make the vaccine, like I said earlier. And this guy's like, no way, they can do both? Also, the Illuminati is good, they're on our side, so that's good news. I end up talking to this kind of disgruntled soldier, and he's talking about a top secret base that was commandeered by the Majestic 12 or Unatco, and all this stuff is happening, and him and his outfit really don't like what's going on. So we talk to him, and we kind of get like the go-ahead that when we go there to let them know Vinny told them it's okay I come in. So I guess they're gonna help me into the base once I get there. I won't go there quite yet, but when I do get there, apparently I'm gonna get some help. I find Dowd back where I originally blew up the EMP thing that I had done like 2 or 3 missions last time in Hell's Kitchen, and he's there waiting for us to talk to us about where the freighter is. We find out that Stanton actually has the virus himself, the plague himself, and so of course, you know, he's not like feeling the greatest, because anyone who has the Grey Death is dying, and so he's trying to help us figure this out. He says, no one brought anything over on a freighter that I know of. So JC's like, yeah, well, there's proof that they did, and he's like, okay, well, if that's the case, they're gonna try and hide it. Go to this naval shipyard, you'll probably find it there. I head on down to Smuggler, who's going to help us with explosives to blow up this freighter. Obviously, it contains the Grey Death. We can't let it be unleashed upon New York. So he says, hey, as long as you have enough explosives, you can break these joints at specific spots, and it will stop the freighter, and you'll be a hero, whatever, doesn't matter. Anyway, so if you have the explosives, you can do it without buying any from him, which I do actually. I've been gathering lambs, and I have the rocket launcher, and it's absolutely what I need, but I do get a couple extra from him. Someone in chat told me that you could potentially soft lock yourself. I don't know how that's possible. Maybe when you're in the freighter, which I do remember being in the freighter, there's enough lambs in there, or the mines, to use, but if you use everything up in the freighter itself and you use everything in your inventory, maybe then you can soft lock yourself. I don't know. Since he told me I was never in that position, I kept plenty, but maybe you find yourself in that position. So try to keep as many explosives as you can. Okay, so we make it to the naval shipyard, and this section is a very, very large portion of fighting and just kind of finding things. Obviously, the whole point is to find the freighter and to blow up those specific joints. So at the beginning here, we find the soldiers Vinny told us about, and they actually let us in right through the front door because they're all disgruntled, like I said, and we find ourselves some robots, a bunch of items in these warehouses. I find the freighter docked here, and I come out of these vents, and I have a great vantage point from this spot. I mean, there are many different ways to get in, but because the vantage point here is so good, I'm able to take my time and aim very carefully, taking care of practically all of the guards from here, making it a lot easier to just get around this shipyard. While I'm inside of the ship trying to break the joints, Daedalus then again contacts me and says I need to ask Dowd about a way to contact the last known leader of the Illuminati, because I guess there's been problems, and some people are dead or just can't be found, so we have to ask Dowd where this woman is because she's the daughter of the leader, and he needs to tell us where he is. This part of the game is very long, like I said, and pretty difficult. There are so many firefights everywhere that I get into. I mean, I like doing this, so it's okay. Anyway, I blow up these little sections of the ship, and over like 3 hours I spend in here because the firefights are difficult, there's little traps everywhere, there's so many items, and a lot of people in chat said this was a place you get turned around in very easily. The map you have is like if you were holding a physical map that someone drew for you and circled areas. So it's not like it's very apparent where you are in the ship. So once I finally pinpoint my location, I'm able to find the areas I need to explode, and then I finally can get off the ship. So once we blow up all those spots in the ship, we stop the Grey Death from being released. Dowd's happy, however, he sounds really bad, and then JC says, sorry, I didn't manage to retrieve any Ambrosia for you, which means that I didn't save his life. I could have saved him, and I searched enough and found some vaccine for him. I didn't even realize. I had completely forgotten. It was such a whirlwind of stuff, and I was enjoying it, and I just completely missed it. So I think he's gonna die soon. But he does tell us where this woman is. She's part of the Everett line of people who are in the Illuminati, and she is gonna help us find him so that he can help us develop a cure. Stanton Dowd sends us off to Paris to find this woman who's going to help us find Everett so that we can finally find a cure. So Jock drops us off and says, hey, the only way to find them is to find Silhouette, another one of those organizations like the Illuminati, and they're underground in some catacombs, which sounds terrible, and so we have to go from the rooftops down to the city, then down to the catacombs. There are a ton of dudes all over the city who are just waiting for me to come up, and they've got rockets and they've got very strong fists that they punch me with, and so I have to really find a good way to make a way across the town while also looking for some cool stuff in some of the buildings. So these Silhouette members aren't trained troops, so they don't know how to fire guns or anything. They're really just like an underground organization that's kind of helpless. So they get stuck down here, and the Majestic 12 units have taken some hostages, and he's like, we don't know how to get to them, and JC's like, well, I can just do it because, we're literally a one-man army, so we go save this woman named Beth. The catacombs are full of different traps that they've set up once you find your way closer to the Majestic 12 units who hold up in one of the different positions. You do have a map, and you can kind of tell where you're going as long as you pay attention to where you are and find a safe spot on the map where the Silhouette members are. You can then kind of trace your way through the map, and doing so, it's very cramped and claustrophobic in here. There are some guys to fight, but it's a lot more about traps and just finding your way around. Since we saved the hostages, this guy's gonna tell us where this woman is who can lead us to the rest of her family, the Everett family, for making a cure. So we now have to go into a club to find her. We finally find Nicolette, and she tells us about how her family hates the Majestic 12, and the Illuminati they're making the Majestic 12 afraid. There's only faction that can make them afraid. So she's like, well, now my mom has been wiped out, she was killed and stuff like that. You can come with her back to her house as long as you accompany her there, and you can start to figure out a little bit more about the virus and where someone is who can cure it. I spend some time looking all over the house for little secrets here and there until we can find this woman's mother's special computer that has all of her work on it. And it's pretty cool. We get to search through these little areas and find hidden switches, try and find out where we're supposed to go. There's a ladder in this dumbwaiter here, which is kind of neat. There's some pretty sweet stuff down here in this computer room. When we access her mom's special computer, we're actually able to talk to Morgan Everett, who's gonna help us for the rest of the game. And he sends us back into the maze behind the house in this garden, and we have to find a way through because he needs us to activate something for him. And they actually know we're there waiting, so once we come out of here, we get attacked by a bunch of dudes. As I head through all of these different areas that are being protected by the Majestic 12 who've taken over things, obviously the Templars, another organization, is used to own this stuff, but it was taken over, and so now I've got to go through there myself. He wants me to find a way to help him get the cure finished, and that's what we're doing here. So we spend a lot of time fighting a lot of people, going through a lot of different areas, and looking all over for computers and things I need to pick up and just learn along the way. So Gunther realizes that we're screwing around, so he came here to tell us something, a message, and I think he means to kill me. Don't worry, I come around the corner and hit this dude with a rocket, and he's gone. Apparently, Simmons is here on a little hologram device, and he's like, you guys can't even finish the vaccine, don't even try. And we're like, yeah, we're gonna try, of course, dude, shut the fuck up. And then he's like, laugh it up, man, Gunther wasn't even as strong as you are, so the next time you're gonna fight someone, you'll fight someone of your strength. And I'm like, oh, okay, so that means I'm stronger than Gunther. Well, I had a rocket launcher. Good news, when we finally find a way to get to Everett, they say that he's actually found a way with all the information I've gotten him on how to cure the disease, so wonderful. Okay, so here's a little bit of an info dump because I haven't been able to pay attention to all the small things, so here we go. Everett did find a way to cure the Grey Death, but he says he needs a universal constructor, which is the thing we destroyed at VersaLife earlier. We need another one, it's the only way to do it. But the good thing is there is one at an airbase, so we've got to go there. However, we also talked to him about Daedalus, which is that AI that was talking to us in our headset, as well as another AI, Icarus, who is also like part of, I don't know exactly who they are, but these two AI are kind of like fighting. Daedalus decided that Majestic 12 was actually bad and a bunch of people were bad, and so it was trying to get me to help it, as well as Icarus is also trying to hurt us or something, and I think that one was released by Simons, whatever the government official, and eventually those two are kind of merging. The two AI are merging, and so it's a problem. Before we get on the chopper and head out with Jock, we look around and I find the dead body of a mechanic, and another mechanic who is labeled as Odd. He says that he checked out the chopper and everything's fine, but of course we question him a little bit, and this guy seems nervous. So I go all the way back down to Morgan, and he says the guy's name is Pierre, the mechanic. And then JC says, he seemed American to me, and Morgan's like, yeah, well, he's not even been to America ever, so that's not my guy. So we come back up here to figure out what's going on. I come back up and kill the mechanic. I mean, he doesn't put up a fight, he thinks we still believe him. So I kill him and I go over to Jock. Jock says, oh my God, yeah, there's a bomb. This guy placed a bomb on the ship, and so he just disables it and everything's fine. But this is something good to note because you might not ever see this in your game if you don't check things out. And the plane will apparently blow up later if you just leave the bomb on it. Obviously, Jock doesn't know about it until you tell him, so it's a good thing you found it out. I find myself at the base. I'm supposed to find this universal constructor, and during this, I'm on the roof. I have to shoot down all of these robots. You see Majestic 12 got here first, of course. They're always a step ahead, or, you know, a step ahead, but I'm obviously smarter and stronger, so screw them. But I have to shoot these guys with rockets for quite a while until I blow all of them up. They do shoot you from far away, and they're very strong. And there's lots of ways you can tackle this. You can sneak around to the areas you need to go to. You can even deactivate their bots and activate other bots that are friendly towards you. The game is definitely ramping up in difficulty a bit because a lot of the enemies you kill explode when they die. There's robots everywhere. There's usually large groups of enemies, and this is definitely obvious in this game. You can do other things than just combat, so don't always approach everything combat-wise unless you want to do that, like I did, and I like to just die and see what happens. I fight my way through flooded stairwells and spider bots everywhere just so I can save these scientists and find the universal constructor. We find this researcher called Savage, and he tells us that the only way to get the universal constructor to work is two different things. One of those things is down in an ocean lab that his daughter is currently going to get like some schematics, and that means we've got to do more crap. We can't even use that thing now that we're here and we saved everyone. The other thing is that we also need some kind of communications with Daedalus and Icarus, the two AI, and so he knows a way to do that. The computer room above the Universal Constructor has a computer we can actually go to and access, so that's what we gotta go do. Okay, so this guy Bob Page is also in control of like some stuff for Majestic 12, and he is also on this deal like with Simmons, the government official, and he wants Savage to bring the components he stole from Area 51 that work with the Universal Constructor, because obviously Bob Page wants to make more of the virus. So he says, I've got your daughter at the ocean lab and I'll kill her if you don't bring it to this gas station in an hour. So JC says, do not negotiate, and we're gonna go take care of this. On our way out to that gas station, we actually meet Tong again, who has contracted the Grey Death. Oh, damn it. And he's here, he says, for selfish reasons. Although he does say he's not part of the equation anymore and not to stand here on his account to go get the things we need so that we can actually make the cure. Otherwise, he, who is here for selfish reasons, and everyone else who wants to also be cured, cannot be cured. I reach the gas station and I sneak around, shooting people from far away with silenced weapons as not to alert anyone. And I come in here and I save that guy's daughter. Look at her. She's right in here. Everything's great. No one even knows I'm in here. No one at all suspects that I'm about to save her. So we talk to her and she's like, I'm not gonna go back to that base underwater because it's crazy in there. So you can take this map and go back there yourself if you'd like, but I'm not going. So that makes sense, right? I'm this crazy guy who can kill everyone, so you might as well let me. I make my way through these labs and I can see on the outskirts of this area the actual sub-base I need to go to. So I try and find my way down under the water so I can get there. Alright, here it is, the underwater base, and I root around here for a little while trying to find anything of importance because there are a lot of dudes and a lot of rooms to look through. We find what we need, but Bob Page decides to taunt us some more, and the AI have actually merged into a new AI called Helios, which is working for Bob Page, which kind of sucks. But we did find the schematics we needed and everything, so we're gonna make a cure, and he says, how easy it will be for me to make a new virus, and we're like, yeah, well, all we have to do is crack the code, and we're just going back and forth at this point. And so he says, your chances of leaving the ocean are mathematically unlikely, and I'm like, no, I'm JC Denton, dude, get out of here. Mr. Government Official has finally tracked me down and is going to kill me. Apparently, he has the same kind of technology and a firmware update. Ooh, that firmware update's all gonna be the turning the tables, you know what I mean? This is not what's gonna help him. In fact, I have a rocket launcher. It takes 2 freaking shots. Although, if I didn't have this, he would have killed me. His weapon is extremely strong. Jesus. So, good news, we were able to save his daughter and get what we needed. Bad news, there's a missile heading exactly for the base where we have our Universal Constructor stuff set up, and it's gonna destroy all of the work we put into everything. So, we've got to find a way to stop this missile. Well, I go right on into this rocket's base, and I kill the guy who is about to control it. So, I guess the rocket's still gonna launch, but we just gotta redirect it somewhere else. Bob is like, oh, you won, but I've still got Helios and we're a mile underground. Time for Plan C, which means that Plan A and B, which were probably the better plans, are now out of the whole loop, so Plan C better work for this guy. Okay, we found the bunker where Page was at, except that he was, like he said, a mile underground, and the rocket we actually redirected to go from our base to his did hit, but we still have to go through the bunker itself to find him. So now that we're here in this base, I spend quite a bit of time going all the way through, as this is the end of the game. This entire area encompasses quite a large section of rooms and floors all over the place, enemies everywhere, and I've got a lot to do. As I said, this is the end of the game, so instead of going over about 2 hours of me exploring and shooting stuff, instead we'll talk about the 3 choices a player has at the end of the game to end the game. You have 3 different choices from 3 different people. One of them is Tracer Tong. He says that if you do what he says, we can just put everything to some kind of dark age and reduce global communications, and no one can take over the world, and we'll all be back at the start. And Denton does say oh, well, then it could happen again in the future, but the global network will be down, and so we'll have to figure out another way to deal with things, and you won't have a faction like the Illuminati or Majestic 12 or Bob Page and his AI taking over anything, and people can live normal lives. The next person who calls you and talks to you is Morgan, and he says, hey, if you help me, we can get the Illuminati back into power, and you and I can take control of the Earth, but without many people knowing, and we'll do this it's like an invisible hand type of thing. No one will know that we're doing it, but we will slowly guide everyone to a safer future, which, there's a lot of problems with that, but that's the second person. The third person is the AI, Helios. He wants you to merge with him, because Bob Page actually wants to merge with the AI himself, but the AI just wants you because you're powerful, you have gotten this far, it knows all about you, and you're special. You were special from the beginning. So it says it wants to merge with you and become some kind of almost omnipotent leader of the world, and because of your humanity, your abilities, your understanding, and then the AI itself, you will both be able to control things in a perfect way, or at least what it wants it to be perfect, right? So you have these 3 choices, and you can choose any of them, and I chose this one. I decided it'll be kind of fun to be the ruler of everything, so I merged with the AI, and we're gonna rule over everything as supposedly, in quotes, good leaders. I have no clue what will happen after this, obviously, but JC's all for it, and even Paul says to him, I know you'll make the right decision. Paul is not the one in control anymore here, so it's all me. JC, it's JC, everyone, it's all me. So, at the end of the game, I've chosen to take over the world myself with an AI, and we, go on to make sure the world's a better place? I'm sure it can be argued against it. But anyway, Deus Ex has finally been completed. Game 86 is done. And my gosh, this game is crazy. I'll tell you what, it was a very, very long journey comparatively to a lot of other first-person type games. It's an immersive sim, so it takes a lot longer. I missed a lot of things in this video. Please be understanding that I do not have the time to sit down and figure all of it out because, again, I'm trying to progress forward and beat more games, and that's what I did. I'm behind on videos, so I'm glad I was able to even able to remember all the things about this game as I'm doing this video. So it was a fantastic game. I have to give this a 9.5. The only reason I'd give it a 9.5 and not a 10 is because the FPS has a lot of issues. The loading is super slow sometimes. We wait around for loading, maybe a total of like half an hour of loading throughout this whole entire experience, which is crazy. But, you know, I know loading's important. You gotta load shit. It's a PS2, but still, loading was pretty bad. FPS drops were kind of crappy around the areas, but it did not detract enough from the game. It was super, super fun. It was a very, very well put together game. Obviously, the PC version is the one you'd want to play, but the PS2 version is super cool just to play anyway. So, hey, that's right. So, thank you, everyone. Anyone who is here to watch this video, and doesn't matter how long through the video you watched, if you skipped to the end just to hear what I had to say about it, thank you so much. Thank you to all the memberships, Patreon, YouTube, Twitch. Thank you guys so much. Obviously, you guys are making this possible, being able to buy these games. And thank you to everyone in the stream, especially this one, because there were a lot of people helping me learn things. A lot of people are helping each other learn things. We talked about differences between the PC version. We talked about mods that go well with the game. So there's just a lot of cool things. So if you'd like to see the actual playthrough of this, you can check it out in my live section where all of these videos exist in order, and you can watch them and you get a more authentic experience if you want. But that's why these videos exist, so you don't have to watch 20 hours of live streams and us messing around. So anyway, I'll be back for video number 87 soon. Later.